Hey everybody, Dr. Pedram Shojai here with Dr. Sarah Godfrey, the Health Bridge. Hi Sarah.
Hi Pedram. Hello listeners.
Hello. So today we'd like to talk about constipation. We got a lot of people who've written us on this, and it's a thing. It's actually a big thing. It's a problem, and so we want to kick down some knowledge on what we know, and hopefully be able to help a few of you through this thing called constipation, because hopefully after listening to this, you'll be able to make some changes that will pretty quickly turn that around.
Nice. Okay, so we're going to do the hacks. I feel like we should start off, Pedram, with a definition. And the definition I learned in medical school, I think, is totally wrong. So the one I learned is constipation is when you go more than 3 days without pooping. And frankly, I mean, you just become a toxic waste dump if you're pooping every 3 days. In other cultures, in Ayurveda, for instance, the ideal is that you poop after every meal. But that developed in India, where the microbiome is completely different. A lot of foods have bacteria in it, and that may not be the right transit time for you. So I would say some of this is really personally driven, but I would say ideally you should be pooping every morning. You should feel like you have full evacuation. There's not, some stuff left behind. Maybe you poop twice a day. That's sort of in the range of what I consider to be normal.
Yeah, twice a day for a lot of people's idea. I mean, if most people I know, if they went once a day, they're happy. And to have a full, satisfying poop is hard to find. You know what I mean? Like we don't poop well. And if you look at Paleolithic days where we were having, up to 100 grams of fiber a day, and you look at modern human Western diets, we're just really low on fiber. I mean, those, in India and, where Ayurveda came from, even China and India, right? There was just a lot more fiber moving through the system. A lot of vegetables. It was a vegetable-based diet with certain grains, right? And here, vegetables are yucky, and so, you get vegetable-flavored stuff or vegetable-colored stuff in boxed food, and you wonder why you can't poop. Or, you're paleo and you're eating raw butter with ostrich eggs, and forgetting that a big part of the paleo framework was a hell of a lot of fiber through vegetables that you were eating, and then, meat and protein to supplement as much, as you could. But, we've talked about this before, so I'm not going to beat that horse, but, it's when you want to go paleo, you have to understand that the fiber was a big part of it. And a lot of people think that they can say that they're paleo just so they could go back to having bacon and eggs every morning. And that's not how that worked.
Yeah, it's such a good point. I feel like I want to just say to our listeners that we love paleo. Like, we love paleo sort of in its purest form. And we like to do a little paleo teasing on the show. So we hope you have a good sense of humor and you're open-minded about this with the ostrich eggs, etc. So yeah, this is such a good point. And another idea I want to bring in that I see a lot with the detox that I teach a few times a year is women and men who come in who are dependent on a cup or two of coffee in the morning to get them going. Because I think that's a really common issue, is that you have this dependence not just on coffee to boost your energy and borrow from tomorrow's energy supply, but also to get you pooping.
Yeah. And so let's talk about peristalsis, right? So what happens with the motility of the gut is that there's this smooth muscle layer that slowly just kind of squeezes and works the bowel through, the intestines and through all the way out until you poop, right? And so a lot of us have a tremendous amount of stress. A lot of us, when we have a tremendous amount of stress, what that signals to the nervous system, when we get into like fight or flight, and when our cortisol levels are jacked and all that, is, hey, there's a lion chasing you. You don't have time to rest and digest and poop right now, unless it's like, you're about to speak on stage and you suddenly have to poop, which is a different type of reaction, right? Is you don't have time for any any of this stuff right now, it's panic time. You got a deadline. Your boss is looking, blah, 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 blah. All the blood gets cut off from the viscera, or the center of the body, goes out to the big muscles to get you in and out of a situation. And so you don't have that intestinal motility. You don't have the nourishing blood flow and kind of the peacetime economy, if you will, when you're always at war.
Oh, Pedram. You just make my heart sing with these metaphors that you're rocking. Peacetime economy. Oh my goodness. Okay, so let's get practical. Let's talk about some of the things that are proven to work, as you totally crack me up. And
I knocked her off her perch. Yes.
Be like Switzerland. Oh my God. So one point here, if you're wondering, I assume you know already how often you're pooping, okay? And hopefully you're sort of assessing your poop. That's kind of maybe another show, is to talk about how to have the Olympic style poop. But one thing you can do to kind of look at transit time, which is really ultimately what we're talking about here in terms of frequency, is you could eat some beets. You could have some red beets and write down what time you ate it. And then you notice the beets on the other side. And you have to do that ideally in a white toilet. I've got a black toilet upstairs and it doesn't work on that. So you got to poop in a white toilet. And what you want is a transit time of 12 to 24 hours. So if it's taken longer than 24 hours, we got to do something about it. What's some of your favorite hacks, Pedram, for addressing this?
Yeah, well, and just to finish up on yours, if it's taking less than 12 hours, it's also something you want to look at, right? Because because some people, it's just they can't hold the food; it just moves right through them, and that's not. And then you're talking about your inability to absorb the nutrients and extract what you need out of it. So both sides of that equation are off balance, right? So I mean, in Chinese medicine, we talk about you need enough water to float the boat. Right? So hydration is an enormous piece to this. So we could talk about fiber all we want, but if you're taking fiber and you're dehydrated, you're just cloying up your gut. And so one of the really important pieces to this is constantly hydrating the system so that it can move the bowel and it could go through. And so what happens is when we reabsorb fluids in the large intestine. Right? So that's where that happens. And if you're dehydrated, that system just isn't working well. And so there's not enough fluids moving through, and then things just get stuck. And then you have those hard poops, you have those really difficult poops, or you're constantly stressed about needing to poop because it's not just happening on its own. And in Chinese medicine, when we look at poop a lot, and so like one of the questions I ask is what's the shape of your poop? Is it, small little rabbit pellets? Is it really thin and pasty? Because then it means it's a digestive issue and it's an inflammatory issue, and the pancreatic enzymes and things aren't breaking down as well. And so there's a lot of poopology that we can get into, and I don't think that this is this show, but suffice it to say, if you're not going at least once a day, in my definition, you're constipated. 3 days, God, if I don't go for 3 days, I'm suicidal or homicidal. I can't figure out which. But I'm not. I ain't right,
It's just not right.
It's just not right.
Yeah, this is good. I'm so glad you raised the point about fluids, because I feel like the fiber conversation is a twofer, right? It's not just that you're supposed to have a certain amount of fiber. I say a minimum of 35 to 45 grams a day for women, more for men. I'm on a fiber challenge where I'm trying to go more in the paleo direction and have even more each day. But when I have fiber, when I get like 5 grams of fiber that I eat 15 minutes before I have a meal, remember on that label, it says, take your fiber with 8 ounces of water, right? Like it's a twofer. It's not that you bump up your fiber and you forget about the water. You got to do the two together. It's very important.
Yeah, and that's a really solid argument for whole foods, right? And I'm not talking about the market. I'm talking about eating things that come as they did in nature, right? So if I find some sort of root or some tuber or something that I'm going to get some, nutritional benefit out of, and I eat through that thing, I'm getting water, I'm getting fiber, I'm getting phytonutrients, and I'm getting all these things in kind of natural, balanced algorithms that have come from millions of years of evolution that my body can recognize as food. And so, it's one of the marks of where we've gone in civilization is to say, oh, we did this research and it turns out fiber is a good thing. Therefore, let's put a bunch of it into a tub and spoon it in your mouth without all the other things that it came with, right? And so that is, to Sarah's point, that's a big deal. But I mean, as you eat more vegetables, they have water and fiber. It's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, you get the twofer right there in your bowl of vegetables. And I was listening to Chris Kresser's podcast, Pedram.
God, you keep doing that.
And he was talking with the guy about fiber, and this guy was talking about how he tries to get 20 to 30 species of fresh vegetables, maybe fruit, but I think he was talking mostly about vegetables each week. And I like that. I like that challenge. I want to, sort of bump up the level here for our listeners who think, oh yeah, I got my asparagus today. I'm going to have some artichokes tomorrow, maybe some broccoli the next day. I want to challenge you to just bump it up, baby. Try to get more species within that concept of getting the fiber together with the fluids. Really try to vary the species that you're getting, because that then affects your microbiome. And it really helps you with the set of microbes in your gut and their DNA, and how, the food you're eating is talking to your microbiome and then also affecting your transit time. And this is an important piece. I want to talk about magnesium and minerals in terms of how they can help you if you're constipated. But I think one of the most common problems that I see, that most natural practitioners see among folks with chronic constipation, is that there's some level of dysbiosis, that there's an imbalance between the good bacteria and the bad bacteria in their gut. And I just was reading a New York Times article about the microbiome and how some of these simplistic ideas that people are developing in the media about the microbiome just really don't apply. It's a very complex system. And, some of the early ideas that we had about Bacteroides and firmicutes and, how those are going to help you in terms of an obesity index, we just really are not clear about what is the right balance of bacteria and diversity of bacteria for people. We know more diversity is better. But if you are struggling with constipation, I just want to kind of inject that thought process of it could be dysbiosis. It could be this imbalance between good and bad bacteria.
God, I love Sarah Gottfried. So good. So I'd like to, because I've somehow become this guy, I'd like to draw a quick metaphor between the two things that you talked about here, because I think it might work. Let's try this one. If we're talking about gut bacteria and we were to relate that to, say, a garden with vegetables, because there was a couple studies that said Acidophilus and Bifidus are good. Let's call Acidophilus broccoli. Let's call Bifidus kale. And so all of a sudden, everyone is just throwing broccoli and kale at their diet all day, every day, without any of the other vegetables going, well, I heard this is good. But, where's okra, right? Where's kohlrabi? Where's all the other stuff that makes up the biodiversity that makes the human thing happen? And so, we're all just throwing broccoli and kale at this garden saying, well, this is what I heard works. And it's an overly simplistic view of life. It's an overly simplistic view of medicine. And it's an overly simplistic view of gardening. I mean, unless you have a broccoli farm, right? But your home garden should have a lot of everything. And that starts with the microbiota. It starts with the soil. It starts with the earthworms. And so the complexity of that is something that we're just starting to develop, kind of redevelop reverence for, right? Because we got too cool for Earth for about 50 years. And now it's oh, wow, Earth is pretty smart. And now that we're coming back, if the Earth inside of you isn't healthy, that's also a showstopper. The bowel is an ecosystem of life, right? And so as the bowels, help us with the transit of this food, the bacteria, the minerals, the cofactors, the fibers or the insoluble fibers even, and the things that are not designed to be digested, but also help the colonies of bacteria and set up that balance, have been disrupted. So coming back to a healthy, natural diet does much more than just power your system. It cleans up the, as you call the bad neighborhoods, and creates a thoroughfare. It's almost like, the cities in riots and they have like barricades in the streets, right? The bad guys aren't letting the city run correctly. And so when you open up these thoroughfares, the detox pathways work again, and the body is doing what it's supposed to be doing, which is moving out the impure and absorbing the pure.
Damn. Okay, fist pump. Okay, that was so good. That was so good. I love you. You know how much I love you. Yo, kohlrabi. That's like my takeaway from that lovely comment. So can we talk about magnesium? I feel like minerals are such a problem. And I even was thinking about, I was reading Sarah Ballantyne recently, and I really love her book, The Paleo Approach. She kind of takes on autoimmunity and how the paleo diet can help you prevent, reverse autoimmunity. And she was talking about anti-nutrients, things like phytic acid that block your ability to absorb certain minerals. And you can find phytic acid in coffee. You can find it in grains. There's lots of foods that have these anti-nutrients that sort of work against you in terms of getting the minerals that you need. That's maybe a longer conversation, but I just want to make the point that I find with most of my patients, we know this, from really good research, that most people are deficient in magnesium. They're deficient in other minerals as well. For some reason, magnesium sort of gets the starring role. So we want to fill those nutrient gaps, because if you're low in magnesium and it's just not allowing your smooth muscle to function properly and kind of squeeze the poop out, as Pedram described a little more eloquently a moment ago.
I don't know if eloquent's the word.
What's that?
I don't know if eloquent's the word.
No, it was totally eloquent. You did this whole peristalsis rap that I really enjoyed. We got to start rapping, Pedram, I think.
I might need more coffee, which is going to block my nutrient absorption. It'll be bad.
Yeah, you and your phytic acid. Okay, so here's the deal. You need more minerals, starting with magnesium. And I often, tell people you need somewhere around 150 to 400 milligrams of magnesium. The truth is, a lot of us need even more than that. You got to be careful, work with your healthcare professional on this. I take personally 600 to 800 milligrams at night. It helps me sleep. It helps me poop. It's a beautiful thing. But you want to realize, okay, the body's kind of complex. If all you're doing is filling the magnesium gap, and then you're not filling other minerals, that can also become a problem over time. So I'm not saying that magnesium is the solution for chronic constipation for a long time. I think of it more as a temporary measure as you do better with absorbing the minerals from the whole foods that you're eating.
Okay, so there's so much juicy stuff in there that I feel like I can't let a couple of these pieces go. Coffee and grains blocking the absorption of minerals. Welcome to the West, right? I mean, if you're having, coffee and a muffin for breakfast, or coffee and, whatever Starbucks is serving, it's like we went the other day, and because my wife sometimes feels like, we should go to Starbucks and sit down and, have coffee and breakfast there on a weekend because that's like leisure. And I'm sitting there going, man, I could have a cup of black coffee, I guess, but there's nothing here I can really eat. And so I'm watching this line go out the door, and boy, do they got a good business. Watch this line go out the door going, every single person here is destroying their gut flora, and they're blocking the absorption of the nutrients, and then they're wondering why they don't feel well and asking for drugs because they can't figure out why they don't feel well, or they're depressed, or their malabsorption and all that. So, that's just a point that, I don't want to belabor, but I just wanted to kind of bring it back up and highlight it, because what you eat has tremendous effects on how your body runs. So if you're blocking the very micronutrients that your body needs to run, no wonder you don't feel well. No wonder you're not pooping. In terms of magnesium, I'm going to kind of step out and show the world that I'm a chick. I love Epsom salt baths. I mean,
oh baby,
it is so good. I mean, I don't get to do it as often because life's fast and all that, but what a great way to get into a magnesium dosing that also lets me just kind of meditate and relaxes my muscles, and you get out of there and just let's talk about what that does for your ATP for a second. It juices up your mitochondria. It helps you with energy production. It helps you with the detox pathways. I mean, taking a magnesium salt bath is Epsom salts basically, is a tremendous way for, and then that night, boy, does Pedram sleep, right? So if you can't take it orally and you have some trouble, you might want to consider doing inner bath. And again, work with your doc on this because, too much is a bit, could be too much.
Right. Very good. Oh, I'm glad you outed yourself about the Epsom salt baths. I can't get my husband to do it. I think it would help him so much.
Oh,
I do it pretty much every night.
I
mean, if you're going to trade up your addictions, like I've given up a lot of addictions over my life, and this is one of those addictions that just really serves me. The hot detox bath with Epsom salt every night. And I'm pretty generous with that Epsom salt.
Yeah, and it helps you sleep and it helps you relax. And for someone, I mean, look, you were just banging around on airplanes, and you and I take a lot of bumps and bruises traveling as much as we do. And so, my body gets cranky with a lot of the travel. Like, I don't sit when I'm in the office, I don't sit around the house. But, if I'm on my way to New York, I can't be that guy standing in the back of the plane the whole time, right? And so sometimes we just, the body gets crunchy, and those baths also help with the muscles tremendously. And so I'm going to talk David into it. I will make sure he takes an Epsom salt bath by the end of this year.
Okay, good. I've got to work around. I really like that.
Totally.
Yeah, so those are our hacks. More fluid, get that fiber that you need, do some diversity in terms of the vegetables that you're eating, some species diversity, try to up your game there. Address dysbiosis, see if that's a problem for you. I think we should maybe even do a separate show on dysbiosis because I see this so commonly, especially for the folks who have irritable bowel syndrome. We know dysbiosis is really a key root cause. And, the truth is dysbiosis is not easy to treat. It's not easy to turn around, but it's something you really want to be thinking about and kind of acknowledging, understanding about your body. Quick thing about irritable bowel syndrome. I think a lot of people think of irritable bowel syndrome as just having the runs. You've got a trigger food or stress just makes you go running for the toilet and having a transit time less than 12 hours. But there's also the constipation type of irritable bowel, or the combination of diarrhea plus constipation. So we want to be careful about that. And I just, there is such a thing as getting too much magnesium, just as there is getting too little. So I just urge people to figure that out with a healthcare professional. I feel like that's my duty on this doctor show that I have with you on the Health Bridge.
You said duty. We're talking about poop. So we there's this thing in Chinese medicine which is alternating loose stools and constipation that has to do with something we call liver qi stagnation, which will kind of grossly translate over into stress and dysbiosis coming from the body's stress mechanisms causing the bowel to not move well either. And so bringing down your stress helps a lot with that. And then the last thing I'd like to just add, because we got to sign off, is motility. Also means just move it, man. Start doing some hiking, start doing some exercise. If you're having trouble pooping, move your body and get that motility going as well. You can jumpstart the peristalsis by getting your body moving and using your abs and just bringing life back into a stagnant lifestyle also helps. So we'll add it more hacks at facebook.com/thehealthbridge. We got to sign off right now, but guys, keep the questions coming. These are user-generated questions that we're answering here. So if you guys are listener-generated questions, so if you guys want more or you have specific questions, hook up with our Facebook page and let us know, and that's what we're doing.
Right on. Remember to go to facebook.com/The Health Bridge. Thank you so much for listening today. We appreciate your comments. We love it when you subscribe on iTunes. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.